I am Ray, and Alan Watts once said, "We suffer so much because we take seriously what the gods made for fun." My intention has been recently to truly accept everything, all the aspects of life that there are, because everything is God's divine play. There is nothing out of order. There is nothing wrong. You cannot be off track. There are no problems, and there are no mistakes. But why do we not see this? In fact, I would guarantee that every single person you would ever meet in your life would say the exact opposite. We do not live in a perfect world. Everything is imperfect. Everything is wrong. My life is full of problems and I've made so many mistakes that I say the way you judge the world is a confession of character. We judge the world as imperfect because we ourselves are imperfect. And God judges the world as perfect because God is perfect. If only you loved yourself as God loves you, never again would you judge yourself. Never again for one moment would you think ill of yourself. But you would love yourself unconditionally. It doesn't matter if you've had a good day or a bad day. God loves you just the same. It doesn't matter if you're the most evil person on the planet, and it doesn't matter if you're the greatest saint. God loves you the same. The only difference is that there may be a bit of sadness the more we stray from God. But you see, the more we at least try to accept life, to accept all that is given to us, and to not resist reality, if we try our best to see and experience life this way, then we connect to God. We can begin seeing God. We can begin seeing life how God sees it. That is perfect. And what I have experienced in my life is that the more I've simply surrendered and trusted and had faith, I have seen this to be true. That there are no problems, no mistakes. There is nothing wrong. But it is our own ego that causes all the trouble. Because the ego itself is a problem. For most people at least. The ego is fueled by problems. It is fueled by conflict, tension. So long as you live from ego, generally speaking, every single thing that you do will be for one purpose, and that is to reinforce your sense of self-identity. You will judge your experiences, you will ruminate upon the past, upon the future, and you will be in constant resistance to life. You see, we have three main aspects to who or what we are. We have a body, we have a mind, and we have a spirit, which you can call consciousness. Some people live primarily from the body, some people from the mind, and some people from spirit. These three elements of what we are have their own specific function. The body is the vessel for which we experience life. Spirit is infinite energy or infinite potential. It is the divine essence of God that is our true nature, and our mind is a tool that allows us to operate this vessel and direct the flow of energy. The mind is not bad or good, it simply is. You can also exchange the mind for ego. An ego is like, if the mind was a circle, the ego is the center of the circle. Now you see, spirit is also the essence of life itself. It is also called God. This essence of God that we are is the source of all peace, love, joy, and also abundance. Everything that we desire in this life is secretly to reconnect to our true nature as spirit. But why do we go wrong? We go wrong because we live from body and we live from ego mind, which means that we are concerned with physical reality. We want to satisfy sense pleasures, sensual desires. If you notice, for instance, that all the sins are basically an overindulgence in sense pleasures. And here is the problem. The mind is like a valve to a hose. Hose. We take this, and here is the spirit. You could call this the divine ocean of bliss, the kingdom of heaven, nirvana, Valhalla, everybody has a name for it. You can simply call it God. And what the hose does, the mind, it acts as a resistance valve. The stronger the mind, the less God can flow. Let's also just call this life. Now, we often identify with the mind, and so we can say, the more of you, the less there is of God. And the less there is of you, the more there is of God. Which is why we want to learn how to be in complete non-resistance to life. How do we do this? Acceptance, surrender, faith, and trust. Why acceptance? Because the mind constantly does not accept the reality that is occurring. The mind wants reality to be the way that it wants. The problem is we have an infinite array of different desires, aversions, and therefore we are always judging our reality and entering into a state of resistance. So long as we live from the body or the mind identified state, we are trapped in what is called samsara, which is the cycle of suffering. How does this occur? We have a desire. We suffer when our desires are not met. Then we suffer when we struggle to get what we want. Then we suffer when we get what we want, because we live in an ever-changing universe, so what we want goes away. Only do we experience a brief glimpse of temporary pleasure when we get the thing, which soon fades as soon as we get the thing. And so we repeat the cycle once again, wanting a new object of our desire. And so most people live their lives only with fleeting glimpses of pleasure, never finding true happiness, never finding true peace, nor true abundance. Living from mind, from ego, from body is suffering. However, consciousness, which is the true nature of what we are, is also called awareness. Consciousness, awareness, awareness, consciousness. Now, think about your awareness for a moment. You are aware right now, or else you wouldn't be able to understand what I am saying. First question, is awareness bias or prejudice? Does your awareness care about the experiences that are happening? Think about the sky, for instance. Here is the big blue sky. Does the sky care about the nature of the clouds? Whether they are nice fluffy white clouds or stormy black ones. Does it matter to the sky? It does not matter. Does your awareness have desires? Does it have things it wants to avoid? Does your awareness have attachments? Is your awareness affected by your experiences? Is your awareness changing or unchanging? If you pay close attention or think about this for a while, you will discover that awareness is neutral. Awareness does not have desires. It does not have anything to avoid. Awareness accepts all information, all experiences that are received. Awareness remains unaffected by your experiences. It is completely non-attached because awareness is the transcendent state. Consciousness or spirit. Here is our body operating in the physical world. Here is our mind directing our body, wanting desires, avoiding things in the physical world. But here is our consciousness awareness, the spirit that is the transcendent state. Nothing of the mind, nothing of the body can reach consciousness, and therefore consciousness remains unaffected no matter what you are experiencing. And also, awareness is unchanging. This is why we practice complete surrender and non-resistance to life, accepting all experiences as they are, not wanting, not avoiding, because in doing this, we connect to our true nature as consciousness. That is, again, the source of all peace, all love, joy, and abundance. You cannot find lasting satisfaction in a temporary changing world, which is why you will never be happy when you live from ego or body-mind complex. Again, cycle of suffering. To be free from the cycle of suffering, one must recognize their true nature as consciousness or as awareness. That, my friends, is called enlightenment. When you become enlightened by recognizing your true nature, you become free from the cycle of suffering. In fact, enlightenment basically means freedom from suffering. Only from the ego do you experience problems, mistakes, imperfections. When you live from awareness or from consciousness or from presence, these things do not arise and you are free. You are already free. The problem is ignorance. We are ignorant of our true nature, and so ignorance is the source of all suffering. And here is why. You see, heaven, which is also our true nature, let's call it heaven or consciousness. What the mind does is it gives us a sense of separation. Now think about this for one moment. What does it mean to be separated from peace? Everlasting and eternal peace, joy, love, and abundance. It means when you are separated from these things, it is suffering. Now, the mind is not bad. It is neutral, but The unintended consequences of our evolved human mind means that we are separated from our natural state of peace, joy, love, and abundance. To surrender means to let go of power and control, which is the mind's main imperative or desire, you could say. The mind wants control because the mind gives us a sense of individual autonomy. It allows us to be a unique snowflake, a unique personality. Again, not a bad thing. What is bad is ignorance, and that is the false identification with the mind. And therefore, if we identify with the mind, our whole life is about control, and it is about reinforcing our sense of individual identity. We spend our life trying to get things and avoiding painful experiences. You see, most people who are alive today or who have ever been alive are living in a dream. They are sleepwalkers. They appear to be awake and they are unconscious. They are living in darkness, in ignorance, in unconsciousness. This dream is called the Matrix. If you want to learn more about that, watch the movie. Another example of the same theme is the Truman Show, the flat earth. And in Eastern traditions, this is called Maya, the cosmic delusion. Now, in order to wake up from this dream, to become awakened, one must simply see through the illusion. And this is often done, and there are many ways to do this, but one way is called self-inquiry. This is the process of asking yourself, who am I? You see, we identify with the body-mind, but we have simply not investigated. We assume. And because we assume, we believe it to be true. And because everybody else is in the same boat, why would we have any reason to think otherwise? But the practice is simple. Now, to observe something, you need two things. You need an object of your observation, and you need a subject to observe that object. Without an object, there can be no experience. Without a subject, there can be no experience. And so, anything that you can observe, automatically, by default, logically speaking, is separate from you. To observe equals separation. Now, in spiritual circles, we will also tell you that we are all one. Just let that go for a moment. You can either identify as everything or as nothing. Both are equally true. And so the process is simple. You begin asking yourself, okay, well, am I the body? Well, most of us would say that we have a body. That doesn't mean our actions don't conflict with what we say. So can you observe the body? Can you observe your thoughts? Can you observe your feelings? Another approach is the changing versus the unchanging. Is the body changing? Are your thoughts changing? Are your feelings changing? Is your mind changing? Is your personality changing? All of these things are changing all the time. And yet you, as the awareness, remain unchanging. You observe the changing of your personality, of your mind, of your feelings, of your thoughts, of your body. You see, in life, There are only two things that ever exist. Only two. There are an infinite array of changing experiences upon the backdrop of an unchanging awareness. When you are conceived and in your mother's womb, a changing experience in which you, the awareness, are experiencing being in the womb. Then you are born, changing experience. Then you grow up, changing experience. The body changes, the mind changes, you remain unchanged. Then when you go to sleep at night, in your dreams, yet the same changing experiences, and you are there aware. And even in deep sleep, this is but another changing experience in which you are still present as the awareness. The only difference is, in deep sleep, the mind is dissolved. The mind dissolves completely back into the unconscious or into your body, which means that separation is gone. There is no separation in the state of deep sleep. As we said earlier, you need two things to observe or to experience. And in deep sleep, there is no separation. There is only one. And therefore, you could say there is an absence of experience, or it is the experience of absence. You experience a void. And you see, in the moment of death, in old age, or whenever we die, that is but another changing experience in which you as the awareness remain unchanged. There is no death. Death does not exist. You, as the awakened one, lose the fear of death. Only body-mind is afraid of death. Because death is change. All that changes dies. The body changes and it dies. The mind changes and it dies. Because we believe we are the body-mind, so too we believe in death. That is why, for instance, Jesus Christ preached everlasting life. Through salvation, through enlightenment, you are forever free from death. Even death, as we perceive it, is an illusion. Because as I mentioned just a bit ago, the universe is one. By definition. Imagine this, for instance. Take a gold bar. You melt that gold bar down into a gold ring. You melt the gold ring down into a gold bracelet. You melt the gold bracelet down to a gold necklace. So long as we exist under the illusion of the body-mind, or what you might call the illusion of separation, we identify as the ring. We identify as the bracelet. We identify as the necklace. But in truth, there was only ever the one gold, temporarily manifesting in these different forms. And that, my friends, is the universe. The universe is the same one energy, vibrating at an infinite array of different frequencies, what I call the frequencies of existence. Because we live from separation, we only see the ring, we only see the bracelet, we only see the necklace. We are unaware of the true nature of reality as the one same gold. Therefore, when the ring gets melted down and turns into a bracelet, we suffer because we are attached to the temporary form. When somebody we love dies, we suffer because we live in ignorance. We believed that what we loved was the ring, was the temporary form, but it was not. You do not love a dead body the same way you love a living person, a living being. You do not love a flower when it is withered and dead, but you love a flower when it is full and alive. Why? Because in truth, you loved the gold temporarily manifesting in that specific form. You did not love the form because when the life exits the form, you do not love it anymore. You loved the gold the whole time. You loved the life. And this life, this gold, is eternal. It does not die. It simply changes forms. Therefore, do not mourn the living. Do not mourn the dead. All is right in the world. We temporarily experience a nightmare, and when we wake up, we will realize it was just a dream. It does not matter so much what happens to us in this life, because in the end, you are already in heaven. You are only dreaming that you are not. You are already free. You are the source of all peace, all love, all joy, all abundance in existence. All lack and all scarcity is an illusion, which means that you already possess every single thing you could have ever even imagined. It's already yours. You do not have to do anything for it. So long as you live in separation, you will feel like you have to struggle, fight. It's going to take some hard work. It's going to take time. False, false. How can you struggle to get what is already yours? How can you fight for what is yours? How can you work hard for what is yours? How does it take time to get what is already yours? The difficult part is conditioning. Whether or not you believe in reincarnation, perhaps this will make sense in a moment. Life, all is energy. So everything is merely or simply the transmutation of energy. Energy is also information. We as human beings are a collection of information. How do I put this? The way this information is structured are tendencies. That is called karma. Karma is simply the specific ways in which energy is transmuted. So we, in essence, are like big bundles of karma. Throughout existence, here we are born. We live our life, we reach midlife, and then here we die. The tendencies that we get from this particular lifetime affect what we experience in the next life, in the next life, in the next life. Because all is energy, our experiences imprint upon our soul, upon our mind, upon our body. And those imprints are karma. Therefore, the life we are living now is a reflection of past karma. And we have incarnated into this current birth to, let's say, undo the knots. So here we are, all knotted up. All kinds of conditioning, all kinds of karma, all kinds of specific tendencies. And we have incarnated into birth to straighten up. And therefore, the specific problems you deal with this life are exactly what you need for your highest spiritual growth. You cannot fail no matter what you do in this life, because whatever tendencies that manifest will simply be worked out at some later date. Another way of looking at it is we once came from Source, and somehow we got split off into separate souls. So here is your soul, and here is the soul of everybody else. Our soul then incarnates through a mind into a body, and that is the specific life we are in. We incarnate to work out our soul's karma, the specific tendencies, because when we fell from Source, I don't mean that to sound negative, but we entered into separation. And so our soul has a deep yearning to return to the Source, to return to wholeness. And so we incarnate into this life to work out whatever we need to do to return back to that state of wholeness, that state of perfection. This, my friends, is why enlightenment is the most important thing you will ever discover in your entire life. Not only in this life, but every possible life. Because, well, as I mentioned earlier, samsara is also called the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. So long as we live from ego, from body, we will continue to create new karma for ourselves, new tendencies, new imprints upon ourselves. This new karma will then create new experiences that we will have to face in the future. However, enlightenment is becoming free from the illusion that we are the body, that we are the mind. And once you become free from this illusion, you stop creating new karma. And therefore you become free from the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. In the recognition of your true nature as consciousness, as the divine, you make your way back to Source. This is salvation. You return to the kingdom of heaven, everlasting bliss, that is your true nature. But I say, do not worry so much about lives and deaths and rebirths. You can experience salvation in this life. Once you wake up, you stop feeding the ego, and therefore the ego cannot be fueled. The ego is what allows for new karma to be created. And without feeding the ego, you stop creating new karma. Now, whatever problems you face in this life, these are the paths to liberation. Your problems, or so-called problems, are leading you to enlightenment. Because, as I say, the source of all suffering is unconsciousness or ignorance, but the root of all enlightenment is suffering. So life has created a pretty self-sustaining game here. We enter into separation and we experience suffering. That suffering increases our awareness and leads us to enlightenment. Therefore, instead of being a victim to your suffering, become a student. The moment you attempt to surrender, to let go, and to enter into the path of enlightenment, you will face almost immediate resistance from the ego. Because for the ego, surrender equals death. And so the ego will not want to let go of control. It will not want to surrender. They say enlightenment is the ego's greatest disappointment. Because the one who wants enlightenment is the same one that is blocking enlightenment. Like I said earlier, the more there is of you, the less there is of God. The less there is of you, the more there is of God. And so we surrender, let go, and accept reality to align ourselves with our true nature as the divine, and to surrender the ego. That is the source of suffering, the source of separation, the source of ignorance, the source of illusion. Now, we do not need to kill the ego, because the ego is an illusion. It would be like trying to fight the darkness. It would be like trying to throw punches in a dark room and expecting something to happen. All that is required is that you turn on the lights. Enlightenment, you simply see through the illusion. It's so crazy for me. I like to think about dreams. When we go to sleep and we have dreams, all the dream characters, all the trees and the mountains and the dinosaurs, they are all part of the same one dreamer. That is you. And so too it is the same truth in the external world. When I started to do a bit of dream interpretation, I almost immediately realized that you can also do dream interpretation on the experiences that you have in your outer reality, because we are all figments in God's imagination. What you see, that every person that you meet is God showing up in disguise to teach you something about yourself, that you will attract exactly the person that you need at exactly the right time. And the more you become free from the illusion of the ego, the more you recognize that we are all one. You may not feel it all at once, but you will begin to see it. You will begin to see the synchronicities. You will begin to see what you used to call problems, how they were actually the greatest opportunities for your highest spiritual growth. And you will begin learning the ways of God. As many say, God works in mysterious ways, and it is only because we live from ignorance, from ego. As you become free from the prison of the ego, your life enters into harmony, because, as I mentioned earlier, mind is resistance. Life, God, whatever you want to call it, the divine, is the source of harmony itself. When you stop resisting life, you allow the flow to open. Life can more easily flow through you, and you can more easily flow through life. Therefore, many of your problems begin fading away, because the problems were a result of karmic memory. When you stop feeding karma through the mind and you allow the floodgates to open, this source of harmony begins clearing out all of the karmic memory. Now, this may manifest as trouble in your outer experiences, but it is not necessarily to test you or to punish you, but to let go, but to be free. Your troubling experiences are like karma burning off. That is why when life seems to be falling apart or not working, I have begun to rejoice. because I realize that life is not falling apart, life is falling into place. That in order for the new to be born, the old must die. Change, there must be change. And so long as we resist change, we suffer. That is why we accept, surrender, and allow. Let go. Be free in this present moment. The more you can surrender, the more freedom you will experience. So I encourage you to embark on this spiritual journey now. This spiritual journey will end, which is different than what many people teach you. They will say that the spiritual journey is something that never ends, and that is not exactly the truth. The spiritual journey will end the moment you realize there is no distance, so there can be no journey. There is no one to embark on a journey, so there is no journey. The journey is for the ego. The moment you awaken to the fact that you are not your ego, the spiritual journey has begun to end. But because there can be no beginning without an end, and there can be no end without a new beginning. The moment you have that true spiritual awakening experience where you know without a doubt that you are not your body, you are not your mind, you are not your ego, then you might say a new journey begins. But this journey, there is no ego. Let me rephrase that. There is an ego. You are not identified with your ego. It's not that your body and your mind suddenly dissolve into nothingness. The ego and the mind and the body continue to do their thing, but you are not caught under their illusion. And so, you do not necessarily experience a spiritual journey once the ego journey ends. Instead, you start back where you started from. That is, before enlightenment, you chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, you chop wood and you carry water. You restart your life from exactly the same place. The only difference is you are now free. I like to say, most people are living life on demo mode, living from the ego. And the true game of life does not start until that spiritual journey ends, until you remove the illusion of the ego and recognize your true nature as the divine. One example I often use is like in a video game. Here is the game. What everybody does when you live from ego is you try to level up in the game. You get more stuff, you level up your skills, and that for most people is success. It's material success. What enlightenment is and what I am showing you is that you are not the character in the game. You are the one behind the screen with the controller in your hand. To be free from the matrix is to wake up to this fact. What this means is that you are no longer a slave to the rules of the game. At least not so much. You are not so concerned about what happens to the character in the game. Of course, you might have some interest. But from this position, you are free. And you tap into your God power to create any life that you desire without limitations. We have no idea what the limitations are, if there are any. This is playing life on the full mode. This is playing life on demo mode. Another example that is often used is in a movie theater. Whereas Most people identify with the characters on the screen, but in reality, you are the one in the theater watching the movie. When you believe you are the character in the movie, you feel all the things that the character feels. You experience all the things that the character experiences because you feel that they are happening to you. But as we've discussed, consciousness is the transcendent state, and therefore no experience affects consciousness. When you wake up and realize that you are in the theater watching the movie, you stop taking life so seriously. Because you realize there's nothing that can hurt you, that you are forever safe for all eternity. It doesn't matter whether or not you live 1 billion lifetimes. It doesn't matter, because no matter what you experience, whether you do lifetime after lifetime after a lifetime, all changing experiences, you are the awareness behind it all. A lot of people kind of worry about, oh, well, am I going to have to go through this again for trillions of years? That's a long time. No. Eternity is not a long time. Eternity is beyond time. We, in this limited ego form, experience time to be very slow, but God experiences time much differently. From your perspective, in the eternal present moment, you could have billions of years go by, and it will feel as not even one moment has passed. In a dream, you could feel like you lived entire lifetimes in that dream, and at the end of it all, as if it was no time at all. From the ego's perspective, this could be terrifying. But once you realize that you are eternally safe, that you are eternally free, that you have unlimited peace, love, joy, and abundance, what else can you ask for? Everybody is looking for these things, often in the wrong places. Everything that you desire in this life is truly one of these things, or all of them. But we go wrong because we try to find lasting satisfaction in a temporary changing world. But you can find lasting satisfaction in the unchanging, because the unchanging is eternal. You, as consciousness, as awareness, are the eternal, unchanging, divine essence of God. Now, Ramakrishna once said that human beings are like a needle, and God is like a magnet. When the needle is covered in earthliness, it loses its attraction to God. In other words, when we live from ego, with all of this earthly conditioning, all of this karma, all of these tendencies, we are lost in the world, in samsara and suffering. As you evoke the desire for freedom, and once you realize that you cannot find what you are looking for in the world, you will begin shedding this earthliness, and you will become more attracted to God. At some point, it is often called the kiss of God. You could also call it the kiss of death, because the moment it happens is the moment the world stops meaning so much and you become one pointed toward freedom, toward liberation. Now think about how scary this is for the ego. This means the ego has to give up its desires. It has to surrender. It has to accept all that is given. But in truth, enlightenment is the process of giving up nothing and gaining everything. The ego holds in high regard its fantasies, its illusions, and so it feels like it's making a great sacrifice in giving these things up. It is not true. These are illusions. What I have discovered for myself is that all desires are thoughts. You give up a thought for what? For the reality, for the actuality, for the actual thing. Once you give up, you throw it all into the void. You say, okay, I'm done. I'm going to surrender. I'm going to live in this present moment. I'm going to be free. That is when the full abundance of God can enter your life, because you enter into complete non-resistance. And so you allow the complete flow to the highest degree. Complete non-resistance to life. And everything that you have ever desired and everything that you have not yet even imagined will come to you in time. And you shall bring forth heaven on earth. And you will want nothing more but to share it with the world. That is what I am doing with you now. I am Ray. Please let me know your questions in the comments down below. Much peace and many blessings. And remember, especially important, just be.